It's,
Yes.
I'm totally off of that now. Anyway, we'll go through some of the comments at the end, just because I don't want to interrupt the roll we're on. Anyway, so let's go to the clownocracy, right? So it's not bad enough that the Labour Party is intrinsically an evil organisation run by total midwits. The problem is that they're in government, right?
Yeah.
I'm okay with evil organisations run by midwits as long as they come nowhere near power, and unfortunately they do. So this is the Chagos Islands. I'd never heard of them.
No?
No one had ever heard of them. And then one day, Keir Starmer was like, yes, we're going to give these away. It's like, oh, why? Well, no reason. I mean, it's not like Mauritius is putting diplomatic pressure on the British government to give away this remote island chain that we're using. And so in October, Keir Starmer was just like, hey, we're going to give this Indian Ocean territory back to Mauritius. Like, Mauritius is not really a sovereign country. It's a tiny island. But also...
I've been to Mauritius. It's very lovely.
I'm sure it's lovely, but it's not like a military power. And it's never had Mauritius, of course. It's never had the Chagos Islands because, of course, we were the imperial power ruling over all of this, which is why we have the islands and a base on the islands anyway. This is a little diagram of the military base. You can see it's just a little American military base. And so Keir Starmer just came out and said, right, we're going to give this away. And everyone was like, why? And he's like, because. And so everyone was like, oh, well, wait, does that mean we're going to get other islands back? And of course, this is a big deal because of course, the Argentinians were like, oh, we'd like the Falklands back. And they're like, no, we're never going to give the Falklands back. It's like, but why not? If we're going to give one island, why not the rest of them? And they said, no, don't worry. It's unwavering commitment, despite the Chagos stuff. And so this is where it starts getting really stupid. It's kind of weird to start dismembering your own territory anyway. It's really weird. You get into government, I'm going to start just giving away territory. It's a really weird thing to do. But then it's like, okay, but we are going to pay them to take the migrants that are on the island from them. And we're going to send them to another remote island that we have. Like St. Helena is a remote island in the middle of the Atlantic off the coast of Africa. Like I say off the coast, about halfway between Africa and South America. It's like, why would they want the Chagos Island migrants, who are like illegal immigrants who have got to the Chagos Islands, who are being held in a little camp on the Chagos Islands. So we're going to pay $6.5 million to go send them to St. Helena. What are we doing? What are you doing this for, right? And so this was bizarre. It's going to cost us loads of money, and we're doing it completely unprompted. And then the Americans were like, hang on a second, there's an American military base on that. We want you to keep that. And it's like, okay, so now the Labour government has decided to try and negotiate with Mauritius to give them £9 billion for us to keep the base on the island we still own, because this deal hasn't been finalised. So Mauritius must be like, well, this is brilliant. We're going to get a free island, and you're going to give us $9 billion for a 99-year lease on the base on this island. It's just...
Are you getting to a point where you're going to tell me what this is, like, why? Do you know why?
No one knows why.
No one knows. Well, there's clearly, down the line, we're all going to find out why, aren't we? It's going to be something absolutely dreadful, but no reason, is it?
I don't even think it's going to be dreadful. I think it's going to be stupid. I think it's going to be really, really stupid. Because there's just...
anti-American. Is it about that military base?
And you know what? It looks like it is, because, of course, Trump's coming in like a week now, and it seems that they've been trying to fast-track this to get this given away before Trump gets in. So it seems like just a way of harming Trump, but it's a really weird and tangential way. But the point is, no one can understand why we're going to give away an island that we own and that no one's about to take from us.
An empty island. Like it's just an outline of an island.
Basically an empty island, yes. And then we're going to pay £9 billion to the people we give it to keep the base, and we're going to pay £6.5 million to move people who shouldn't even be on the island to a different island where they don't belong either. It's like, okay, clowns, absolute clowns. And the $9 billion we're going to give them, well, we are going to have to raise another $9 billion to avoid public service cuts. It's weird how these numbers keep aligning. Like, when they said, oh, there's a £22 billion black hole in the finances. Oh yeah, we're also going to give $22 billion for carbon capture or something. So why would you literally spend a black hole's worth of money on carbon capture? It's mental, right? Absolutely mental.
Rachel from accounts.
Yeah, we'll get on to Rachel from accounts in a bit, actually, because she's having a rough time of it.
She's dynamic, isn't she?
She's brilliant.
We'll carry on.
Honestly, I feel like the country is being ruled by The Office. You know, like Keir Starmer is.
He's going to do any minute.
Thankfully, he's not that embarrassing, but he is that dumb and totally tone deaf, and so is Rachel Reeves. But anyway, so even the BBC is like, well, hang on a second, where's the growth in the budget? You bring out a budget, you're like, yep, we're 22 billion in the hole. I need to raise 44 billion in taxes. It's like, Rachel, those numbers are not the same. Actually,
no,
they don't add up. That's actually twice as much as you needed.
And they've already lied, haven't they? So they said, oh, we're going to raise, I think it was, 1.6 billion from this VAT on private schools, and that's going to go straight into. And I just said to people, you have to understand the way money works, and it isn't. You can't go, oh, well, we've now got that bit of money, so we're going to put that. That isn't how money works. That isn't how any of us work. That isn't how GDP works. And you have to not believe it when they say we're going to do this because we need to pay for this. It's nonsense and lies.
Yes. So, I mean, that's literally just, it's nonsense and lies. And you remember Keir Starmer was very much, look, this is going to be a government of growth. And it's like, look, I'm not an economist, but even I realise that if you are raising taxes, you are inhibiting growth.
Yes.
Because the money that you're stealing from me, like, and this business is a good example, we've got to pay a 25% corporation tax. Well, that's 25% fewer employees I can have, right? The more you take from me, the fewer people I can employ, and the worse the economy gets in a small fraction.
Yeah.
And if you apply that to the entire civilization, well, then you can see how, like, someone like Millet would say, this is a parasitical entity that's sucking the life out of our country.
Because I don't think people realise how much tax they pay. So if someone buys something from me for like a tenner on my website, I have to pay VAT on that sale, and I might have, and I claim my VAT back, right? So on when I purchase it, but then I have to pay PAYE on every employee, and I have to pay PAYE on my own income, and I have to pay corporation tax, and I have to pay all these other things. So out of that £1 or £10 or whatever, such a significant portion of that is just given back to the government, and for less and less. So I have no A&E in my town. I'm actually banned from my doctors, but that's because I challenged someone on a pronoun badge. But you couldn't get a doctor's appointment anyway unless you go and stand outside of the doctors at 8 o'clock in the morning, like in the 1950s.
No, well, I don't know. I mean, in the 1950s, they probably would have had fewer people waiting. I mean, we
were healthier, I think.
Yeah,
or dead.
In like the 70s and 80s, the doctors would come to your house.
I know.
People don't believe me when I tell them.
I remember going to a doctor's house, so Dr. Forth, I can't remember, I might have had an ear infection or something when I was 8, and it was out of hours, and so you'd phone, and then they'd give you an out of hours doctor. Yeah. It wasn't called it was just called a doctor, and you'd go along, but they were full-time. Yeah. I think my mother's surgery in Glastonbury in Somerset, most of the people working are part-time GPs. So you can never get an appointment. And then it's so terrible. But anyway, I went to Dr. Forth's house at like 8 o'clock in the evening for him to see me. Like, can you imagine?
Not now, I can't, no. But I remember that things used to be better because I'm old. Yeah. Anyway, so obviously this has caused a complete economic flatline. The business leaders around the world said the UK is just the worst of all worlds at the moment. Which, it's true. It's absolutely true. We have a giant parasitic government run by communists who thinks they can literally tax their way to prosperity.
Except themselves, obviously. They probably will avoid some of that.
Of course. And so this has created conditions worse than when Liz Truss was in charge for the bond market. Now, like I said, I'm not an economist. I don't understand the bond market. But the point is, if you look at these graphs, you can see where it spikes under Liz Truss, but then it's higher now under Rachel Reeves. Is the world coming to an end? No. Is the sky falling? No. Is Rachel Reeves being forced out of her job? Is Keir Starmer being forced out of his job? No. This is all a big stitch up, basically. And so, Rachel Reeves is worse for the economy than Liz Truss. And the thing is, Liz Truss was making unpleasant decisions that would be good in the future.
Yeah, that's what I mean, my understanding is that it was all good to take the mickey out of, but nobody really dealt with the substance of what her policies would have done. No. They all were a bit like, oh, it's rubbish. Oh, she lasted less time than a lettuce. And nobody's actually thought, well, economics wise, would that have been good? What
Yes.
she was intending on doing?
So Liz Truss's big crime was that there would have had to have been borrowing to maintain the level of public services that we have, and not just public services, but just benefits, redistribution, all this sort of stuff. But what she would have done is reduce the taxes on businesses and individuals, so the economy would have 6 months down the line been bigger than it was, and
Because
so
we would have employed more people.
and so the tax revenue from each person being employed, and it's not just being employed, it's spending. I mean, like the amount of money you spend on a chocolate bar from the shop, like 20% of that goes to the government. And so, like, okay, well, if more people have more money, more things can get bought, more revenue can be raised by the state, and this would have caught up. And so it would have been a justified period of borrowing because you are actually allowing the economy to grow. Well, Rachel Reeves has done the opposite and arrived in a worse place than Liz Truss economically. And so Liz Truss is actually her tenure is aging better than it would. And basically it's essentially just kind of Thatcherism light, where it's fine. I'm up for it.
Well, they've done this thing. There used to be this like meme thing where you say you have a packet of biscuits, and what the rich people are doing is they're taking all the biscuits and giving you one biscuit, and then saying, "Oh, look, they're trying to steal your biscuit." And I feel like the Labour Party are basically saying, "Oh my God, those people got to eat, and they ate a little bit more than you. Therefore, nobody should eat."
Yes.
It's this proper politics of envy. Like the VAT on the private schools thing.
I was about to
so
bring that. That is
nuts.
the worst.
It's so. And how on earth does that work? Because if you're a big school, if you're like Bristol Grammar School, for example, you're probably redistributing all that, and you're very clever, and you can do it. If you're a smaller private school that exists solely because the schools around are shockingly bad, and the discipline is really bad, and maybe your child goes to a school, I don't know, that has not so many girls as boys, and most of the boys' toilets are permanently out of order, or their heating completely breaks down.
The state of public schools in Britain.
It's horrible.
Yes,
and you've got Catherine Burblesing, right? Yeah. Amazing.
Sure.
Got this school, got the same people, and I argued with someone about it the other day, and I was like, but it's such a great school. It's such a great school, and it's her. She's put this back in. Like, it's her belief that these kids can behave and so on. And so I was like, oh, no, I think it's their parents. I was like, no, it's... But if you had that school, why wouldn't you replicate that everywhere? Why wouldn't you just say, let's have that everywhere?
Well, because you would be essentially returning to kind of like Victorian standards of propriety in schools. Yeah. Now, I'm in 100% in favour of this, and I'm totally unsympathetic to. But what about the poor kids? And what about the poor kids? They'll be all right.
Yeah. No, they need it.
Absolutely.
If your home life is chaos. And I know I'm going down a tangent here, so I'll bring myself back in a minute. But if your home life is chaos and there's no discipline and there's no expectation that you can behave or achieve, then you need some sanctity and safety that at 9 o'clock you actually have 7 hours or whatever it is that you're at school. You have those hours in that day where you are treated like someone who can do something. And that's what used to happen in my school. We had naughty kids from bad families, but they came in and they behaved all day. And I bet they're much better off than if we're like, oh, well, little Johnny, he can't really sit still. And you can't expect him not to swear at teachers. And
no, I can expect all of these things, and I can make him do it, and he will be punished until he does it.
Yes.
Like, I'm so sick of this permissiveness. And, like, the whole thing is predicated on the idea that the children kind of deserve to be at the very bottom level that they're at, as if they no they you can't, like you say, you can't expect them to. No, I can, and I will make them do it. And actually that's for their good, because what children actually need to become healthy, normal, well-adjusted adults is predictability. They need to know that tomorrow is going to be like yesterday. And they need to know where the boundaries are and what happens if they cross the boundaries, and they will learn themselves. They will start to control themselves and to live within them, and then there'll be a person who can be relied upon not to be a congenital criminal their entire lives.
And they need to be scared witless of at least one person in that school.
Absolutely.
At least one.
There has to be a fear of the authority above them. They like, and this is another, and it's a real sort of like millennial problem. So, I want to be my child's friend. You are not their friend. You know, I remember years ago, like, my dad once tried to call me mate, and I was like, Dad, I'm not your mate. I'm your son. You know, and he was like, oh, okay then. And ever since that, I don't know why I did that either. I was just like, no, I'm not your mate. You know, I don't like hearing that. But like explored this train of thought, and I've realized no, it's absolutely imperative that for the child's entire life they understand there is a hierarchy here, and you are beneath your parents, and this is why you owe deference to your parents, and this is why your parents are a source of guidance to you that you respect. And this whole like, oh, we'll just equal them out. No, it's atrocious. I hate it.
I agree.
But anyway, getting back to the economy, but on the schools thing, a bunch of these private schools have now closed, by the way, as well. A couple of dozen, I think. It's like, okay, yeah, that's great, isn't it? Continual shrinkage. The
race to the bottom.
Yeah, it's the race to the bottom, the degradation. And like, I send my kids to a small private school. It's expensive for me, but it's not like expensive in the grand scheme of things. And they're like, yeah, well, we're really worried about it. It's like, and I send them there because it's a nice school. My dad couldn't afford to send me to a private school, but I can afford to send them to a private school. And it's not Eton. You know what I mean? I see loads of these Labour activists being like, yeah, great, another private school gone. It's like a lot of this is well-meaning middle-class parents who just wants to give their children the start that they didn't have.
Yes.
This is not like, Eton billionaire school.
And what does it... I mean, you have to really ask, what were they hoping to achieve? Because if it's only 1.6 billion...
Yeah.
And I doubt if it is even that much. But if it's only that, what is that going to do to a country's budget? Because that's only once they get it, right? That's over...
And then they give it to the Chagos Islands.
It's just...
ridiculous.
It's a signal to their membership, isn't it? Like, oh, we're going to punish those people because they've got a little bit more than you.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Thanks. I worked really hard for what I have, actually. But anyway, so this is just a list of repeated bad decisions. This is an article by Adam Brooks, where he just goes through. There's just so many. Just, how Keir Starmer handled the riots, how he handled the winter fuel allowance, the farmers' inheritance tax, national insurance hikes, the waspy women betrayal, the grooming gangs inquiry refusal. And so this is just this absolute cavalcade. And this is just... The Chagos Islands one is just the most inexplicable one. I mean, at least on the other, problems, they can make kind of a half reasonable argument that kind of defends themselves on it. But on the Chagos one, this is stupid and you're morons and it's costing us billions.
Yeah, but I just don't believe that it's for nothing. I think that we'll find out what the reason is.
Could well be.
A couple of years down the line, if not sooner. And it will still be equally as demented, but we'll at least understand it.
Yeah, it could be. And again, it's not like an important issue really, but it's just emblematic.
Well, we don't know, do we?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It could be that Labour's got their bloody child trafficking operation operating from it or something like that.
That'd be nice.
I don't know.
I think that's Ukraine, isn't it?
That's the thing. It could be so many places, but it's definitely happening, isn't it?
I hope you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, and if you want to see what else we're up to, you can always go to our website and look at our roundtables where we talk about hot news with all of the hosts. This one was talking about Elon on Twitter and targeting the Labour Party. And if you want to see everything else that we're posting, you can always follow us on Twitter itself. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.